All right, so we got a fun one here today, and I think you'll see why pretty quick. So this one looks like there's quite a bit of deterioration, and there's this conversation of, is it hail? And you could definitely see why there would be a yes to that. Now, we're in the morning sun here. We're kind of at an angle. This is going to be the southernmost side. This is going to be east, west, and then north on the backside there. And so sometimes you get these in-betweens. And there's a couple red flags. Now, at first glance, we would probably call this hail. Now, I went through and I marked some up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I marked up 10 before I quit. And I want you to kind of take a look at the patterns here. I'm going to keep it off to the left because on the right I showed a little bit more. So there's a pattern to note here. There is 10. None of them are on the second layer, the tooth. Every one of them is on the lower layer. Every one of them goes from where that color line is down. And so that's going to be a weak point. And that's going to tell us there's a chance that it's natural deterioration. Now, over here we see some edge to the tooth. But if you notice, there's kind of a line there I drew. Well, if you look closely, you'll see a crack starting to form. So that's just natural thermal cracking. Depending on your shingle, that can happen earlier or later. I've had a lot of talks on here about that. We actually don't know the exact age of this, but we're guessing it's about 15 to 20 years old. Again, we finally have some on the tooth, but we have that crack forming through both sides. So that's my first indicator that this might not be hail. Now, the second thing I want to do is that I talked about directions first. When you're dealing with natural deterioration, the worst is going to happen on the south-facing side. The second worst is going to happen on the west, then the east, then the north. So the south side here definitely looks a lot worse. In fact, there's some older, you might be able to see it shining from the side here, but there's some older deterioration. So that's the south side, which looks awful. And then we get over to the north side here, and it's clean. There's nothing here I could confidently say is hail. And so normally hailstorms in this area, in this particular area, over the last 5 to 10 years, the vast majority of them have come from the north, and all the biggest ones have. So it's very unlikely at this point. Now, we do have some destroyed cap, but that's the original cap of the roof. Bear in mind that this neighborhood is 30 years old. And you can tell it's the original because note the paint on it, the way it was applied by brush, the same color, matches the sides. Almost nobody ever repaints the sides. So let's go over to this one. Same thing, same instance. It's the original cap. And so, but you know what normally gets replaced is the turtle vents and the pipe vents. Pipes all look clean. I went ahead and chalked 2 turtle, and look at this. That is marble size hail is the worst thing that hit that, and only a few times. Over here we've got marble size. When you look at every single one of these, you've got pea to marble size. So here's another instance. And so that's the second red flag we saw, is the components don't match. Again, you can just see from this overview here. This side, really bad. Could call it hail. Really good. Not going to happen. And so sometimes now, mind you, wind direction during a storm can cause that, where you will see a south side that's totaled out and a north side that only has maybe a couple glances. And so that's why you look for all 3 of these signs. And the third sign is your ridge usually takes it worse than your field. Now, it won't take it often, but if I'm looking at that level of damage on my south, east, and west, I should be finding at least 1 rake probably every 10 feet that's destroyed. And if you'll notice, this is high profile. High profile has a weak point in it right about here and right here. So I should be looking at a ton of damage. I just walked probably a 30-foot stretch, and there's not even a single thing that looks like it could be damaged. I've walked every ridge of this roof, and there's not a single piece of evidence even suggesting hail damage on the ridge. And yeah, sometimes you do get your impact resistant ridge, but that is definitely not what's happening here. And so there you go. There's a roof, perfect example. You see them all over the YouTube. Looks like hail. And I can already see a video complaining about how he's just going to have to take it to arbitration. He's going to sue the adjuster. And almost every time you hear one of those videos, you're looking at a roof like this, or better. A lot of times better. Now, I am in a massive hail zone. That's the truth of it all. But not this side of town. Nearest hailstorm we've had to here is about 3 miles away, and that was pretty much every hailstorm in the last 5 years. Notice the lack of signs, the lack of new construction, lack of loaded roofs. In fact, as far as the eye can see, in every direction, there's not a single roof that has somebody on it, that has materials loaded to it, or has any evidence of new construction. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do, which I'm not going to do on this video, is you're going to want to tell the story from the elevations too. And I've talked about this a lot. You're going to want to check the gutters. You're going to want to check the downspouts, the deck railing, the window screens, the vinyl window frames, the vinyl fences. But again, you have painted fences there. Painted fences are more likely to be replaced due to hail damage than any other. Stained are the next most likely not being replaced. I can see window screens over there. And look at the discoloration. That window screen's at least 5 to 10 years old, untouched. Everywhere I look, there's not a single hint of evidence in this entire part of town of hail. You'd even see it on the trees to some extent, although it's been too long for the trees. But there's no evidence of recent hail whatsoever.